Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Bourbon. I'm John.
I'm James.
And today we're talking about small batch.
So small batch is something newish in the industry. Came around 88. Booker No liked the idea of what Blanton's was doing, but didn't like the idea of a single barrel. He didn't think it was quite right. So he came up with 4 recipes for small batch. And that was, Jim Beam rolled that out first. That was who Booker's from.
Yeah, so Bookers, Bakers, and even in that perspective, what was kind of interesting was there's no legal definition of single barrel, and there's also no legal definition of small batch. But bourbon was generally batched, maybe in larger batches, so the idea of having a more refined, mingled small batch was another addition to the exoticness of bourbon, especially in the 80s. So I know there's some other millennials out there, and you said, well gosh, I was born in the 80s, that seemed like that wasn't so long ago, but in the bourbon world, it definitely was a pretty big milestone for them, and you see that now more than ever in the industry, and Jim Beam was one of the first ones to really market that and make it so. So what do you got here?
Well, I'm going, okay, it was Baker's, Knob, Basil, and Booker's, but Baker's just doesn't get much love. I mean, everyone likes Basil, everyone who's starting bourbon likes Basil Hayden. Everyone who wants that foolproof punch really like Knob Creek, and especially the single barrels.
If you guys don't remember, Basil Hayden is actually the same mash bill as Old Granddad, one of my favorites. Actually, one of my wife's favorites too.
And this is named after a Beam. So, and he's still with us, and every now and then I hear he is in the gift shop, and people who actually know can get him to sign this, but it's Booker's nephew?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they named it after him. It's 107 proof, and it's the last one to still have an age statement on it. So this is 7 year.
Booker No around every now and then. He's still with us too.
Wow, in spirit.
Yeah.
Definitely in spirit. So 107, I kind of like it because it goes under the radar a lot, but it was one of the original 4. Everyone knows what the other ones taste like. It just thought it would be fun to revisit this.
Let's do it.
Got that color you expect. Sticks the glass real well. I get a lot of cinnamon and oak.
I get a little bit of mint.
Must be the rye and the mash bill.
Yeah, it's definitely, you can tell it's a high rye in the mash bill.
You can tell it's a warmer proof too. It's of the ones we'll be tasting, this is going to be the highest proof out of the bunch for 107. I wonder if that scares a lot of people off too.
Not too bad of a Kentucky hug, but probably not the most entry-level bourbon I would ever recommend.
No, that would be Basil, which would be its cousin or friend or roommate. First thing I taste right off the bat is I can tell it's a Jim Beam product because I taste peanut butter.
It's true. Crunchy peanut butter for sure.
Definitely all that nutty, but we were sampling on it, me and one of the 2 directors the other night, and I go, it tastes like someone wrapped cinnamon sticks in peanut butter.
It's a good observation.
I don't know who would do that unless they drank a lot of this. But
baking spices, it's a little herbaceous, so some herbal elements, qualities to it.
Definitely see that on the finish. A little hug.
Little hug. It's got a good lingering peppery sort of finish to it, almost like a peppermint patty, I want to say.
Yeah. So if you're looking for something different small batch wise, and you've done all the other Jim Beam line, don't overlook it. What you think? You haven't had that in a while.
I haven't had it in a while. It's a solid bourbon if you're looking for something different to try and you haven't tried it before. And what does that run generally retail?
45.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a little on the pricier side, but it is the last one to still hold an age statement, and it is the highest proof of the bunch.
Get it while you can at that price, I'd say.
Yeah. So Elijah Craig, which is Heaven Hill's small batch, sort of.
Yeah, Elijah Craig, the father of bourbon. Yeah. Which I don't know about that, but Elijah Craig definitely very well known for being one of the pioneers in the bourbon industry. So paying homage to Elijah Craig, Heaven Hill has this wonderful bourbon. We've talked about the barrel strength edition, but when the age statement went away, they replaced that, the 12-year age statement, they replaced that with the small batch. So
if you can still find the 12, like you can't, but the 12 is amazing. Small batch is a solid, amazing pour. In a great price range too, because it's in that 25 area. And it's a quite nice drink.
And from what I understand, you'll still find a lot of barrels that are coming around the 12-year range, but it gives them some flexibility by calling it a small batch. So I think it's 8 to 12 is what I understand.
Which is without an age statement to prove, it's still older sort of than the 7, but they just won't say that.
Get a lot more your sweeter notes on the nose for this one, caramels, vanillas.
This is a very atypical, mature bourbon nose. Great color, just nice golden honey.
Get a little bit of like Werther's original butterscotch,
Yeah,
It's a sweeter bourbon.
most definitely. And it's also 107.94, so it is proof down. Although we were bemoaning, the only complaint I have, Heaven Hill, and I know they've heard it, and they've heard it from us when we've done barrel picks, keep it barrel strength when we're doing single barrels of this. Because it does change, because they come in at 120 or more out of their barrels.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are 130 plus. When you're trying to proof down 40 proof, you lose a lot of the flavor profile components that you'd get tasting it at barrel strength.
And it's just really out, unless you have a hydrometer?
Hydrometer, yeah.
Some people carry a hydrometer around when they do barrel picks.
Yeah, they don't always love the nerd with the hydrometer with you, but if you can pull it off, I think it's worth it.
That way you know what you get when you buy it, but $25.
It's a solid pour.
Great pour. And interesting entry to the small batch.
So next up, we're going to do something fun. We're going to talk about Four Roses small batch. And again, no real legal definition of small batch, but Four Roses sort of took, in my opinion, the small batch to the next level. They have 10 different recipes, yeast strains, and what they do is they take 4 and put them in their traditional small batch product, which we maybe tasted or talked about before, but we want to go ahead and
revisit.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and revisit that. So I'll pour that. And this is one of your go-tos, right?
Oh, anytime I am the unusual person that prefers this over their single barrel. The one you find on the shelf, not a barrel pick, but the traditional single barrel, I actually prefer the small batch.
And I think that's a good point that James has is don't snub your nose to a small batch concept, because mingling with any spirit is an art for sure. And if you get it right, you can get some really wonderful product to come out of that. And so for this, this was really refined over time. It's got 4 of the different 10 recipes. So we're looking at the 2 O's, the OESO, the OBSO, and then the K recipe, the OESK, OBSK. Now the K is going to be more on the spicy side, and the O, I think the O's a little bit spicy, but fruity spicy.
So the difference between the O and the B, they have 2 different mash bills.
One's a higher rye, 35%, where the other one's 20.
Which is B. So if you ever see it, it's B for bold.
Yeah.
That's usually what I tell people in the aisle. And then E's a little mellower, so you got a nice blend of the bold and the E, the little bit more, which is still a higher, even the E is a higher rye mash bill in the bourbon world.
Yeah, so that's your mash bill, and then your ending is the yeast strain.
So. And there's not an age statement on this one, is there?
No, but I think generally these are around the 7-year range.
And the nose on it is just something you can fall in love with. So, telling stories.
90 proof.
I didn't like the yellow label when it came out. I was not a huge fan of Four Roses. I think I've even told Al this. And once they brought out this, I was like, okay, now I'm on board. Because it's just so much better.
Total difference. But again, that's 80 proof, all 10 recipes.
Oh, yeah.
this you have just the 4 recipes, and it's at 95 or 90 proof. Sorry, 45% ABV.
Which is funny, all 3 of these have tasted so completely different. I mean, it still shares a lot of the sweetness of the Elijah Craig, but it's got different kind of spices in the end. Unlike this was like more cinnamon, this was definitely vanilla and caramel balm. This is like honey and spice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. So that's how old now? What, 10 years?
Yeah, the Four Roses small batch has been around the better part of over a decade, and so recently what they came out with that we also wanted to taste with you guys today was the small batch select. So this just came out, and so Brent Elliott and Al Young, coming off their success of the 130th anniversary, really took a look at that F and the K that founded their sort of profile for the 130th, and they said, you know what, we really want to try to replicate that and do it in a way that that we can have an everyday product for somebody to drink. So they took that sort of concept, took a look at the F, the K, also the V, and so what they came up with was a non-chill filtered expression. So this one actually has 6 recipes, but they're just V, K, and F. So OBSV, OESV, OBSK, OESK, and then you've got your F. So that's going to be OBSF, OESF. Now, what's interesting about that is the V's will have some of that fruity quality, and then the K's are going to have more of the spicy characteristic, and then the F's are going to really kind of bring a little bit of minty quality to it. So it's a good balance, but it's also non-chill filtered, and for this one, it's 104 proof.
Yeah, so it's the second highest. And chill filtering is kind of a newish creation for what it is when you put water in your whiskey or ice in your whiskey, you can sometimes get cloudy, little lumpy stuff. The problem with that is that's kind of like fats in your meat.
Amino acids.
They make it taste better. So what they do is actually chill and basically kind of scrape off the fat. And
but you're also taking away some flavor in that, or at least that's what the idea or concept behind going for a non-chill filter products. You might hear that in the industry, and that's really kind of what that stems around.
That's a new hot buzz term. So, and it does. I've tasted it. I think it does make a difference.
I think it can make a difference. But so price point going back on this one, the original small batch was
$25.
Yeah, so when we're talking about this one, a more refined product.
It's about 50 to 60.
Looking in that 50 to 60 price range.
But it's also 104 proof, so. And a lot more recipes involved. And a few weeks back, me and one of the 2 directors did them both side by side, and I was bound and determined that this one wasn't going to taste twice as good, and I was proven wrong. This tastes twice as good.
I think the nose on this automatically lets you know that it's a more complex profile. I think the blend on this is incredible. You get some of that mini aspect. You get some of the spice. You can already smell even multiple elements, I think, versus just one major standout.
Right. And I definitely don't know if it's power suggestion, but I'm getting nothing but spearmint on the end. But that nice kind of fresh grind. It's twice as good. I love my standby. You're great. You're my everyday drinker, but
yeah, this one definitely is kind of like a wave from a mouthfeel perspective. I think you get a lot of additional undertones that kind of coat the whole mouth, and then it sticks with you. It lingers. It's got a good lingering finish. I would say it's a little hot, but not Kentucky Hug.
No, not. This was much hotter, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So in conclusion, small batches, they kind of started the revolution, really. This is when bourbon kind of started growing up.
It's true. But just remember, if they call it a small batch, it could be 2 barrels to make a small batch, or it could be 200 barrels. So like really think about that, because the distilleries, unless they're kind, they may not tell you.
And they won't. I
What
mean,
that's
like
gonna-
a Willet's going to be, what, a few hundred, and a Jim Beam and Four Roses is going to be, what, a few thousand. Just the concept of size, so.
But since we're friends, I would let you in on something that we like to do, especially when we really got into tasting bourbon, was get a couple of single barrels, make your own small batch. Especially with Four Roses, I think one of the funnest things I ever did was to get some of the barrel strength Four Roses recipes and kind of create your own small batch and play around with it.
And Four Roses lends itself to that, especially single barrels. It's the bourbon nerd's bourbon. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you can really geek out collecting those.
Or you can play with, there's a couple great books out there, but you can play with, Poor Man's Pappy and make a small batch out of that. You can batch different weeded bourbons together, different rye profiles together, and come up with your own. So that can be pretty fun. So I think it's all about experimentation when it comes to that. So that's kind of the art of mingling, if you will.
So don't overlook the small blender, because the blender is, at least on the other side of the Atlantic, it's more the rock star than the distiller is.
It's true.
So small batch, yay.
Oh yeah,
Small
absolutely.
batch, definitely yay. Don't overlook great price points. Mature bourbon. It's when it started growing up in the late 80s.
As did I.
So did I. Wow, where did you go from there?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
And what's worse is the directors are giving me these just looks because they're losing it too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, thanks everybody. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you like what you saw today, please click on the link above, subscribe. We have some other videos out there. We appreciate you as always, and drink
if you
more bourbon.
want to suggest any other small batches we should go revisit, put in the comments. We'd love to do it. Or
Yeah, if you've got some small batches that we haven't tried yet, let us know.
Amen.
So we'd love to hear what you think about these as well. But thanks everyone again, and we'll
See
drink
you
with you
soon.
again soon. Take care.